Hey guys, let's get more news about Steelers, but first, don't forget to subscribe and leave your like. Steelers already making Panthers trade for Deontay Johnson look like a flop. Not a lot of happy faces in the Carolina Panthers organization right now. They just benched their former top pick Bryce Young after only 18 games. It seems like that could lead to an eventual divorce after the season unless something changes in a hurry. Not everything is Young's fault, but at least the Panthers attempted to build some pieces around him. They have a terrible roster for the most part. Despite a quality piece here and there, this team was expected to hold a top 5 pick in the upcoming draft no matter how well Young did or not. One of the bigger moves the Panthers completed this offseason was a trade with the Steelers. They added a top receiver by acquiring Deontay Johnson for late-round draft swaps and Dante Jackson. We are only heading into Week 3 of the NFL, but things seem shaky with the Panthers and any player on their team. Carolina's owner, David Tepper, is not known for making good decisions and having a sense of patience, so there could be another upheaval across the organization if they can't win a couple of games here and there. With Young out of the lineup, it seems like Johnson's marriage with the Panthers could end soon. Pittsburgh dealt Johnson after some poor play down the stretch of last season. The star receiver seemed disinterested in helping his team, and they decided to move him because of that. George Pickens was another big reason for this trade, as the Steelers wanted him to be their top guy, and Johnson seemed to be a poor influence on the young receiver. Jackson was a solid starter during his time with the Panthers, but it seems like the team around him sunk his performance. He has been terrific during the start of the season with the Steelers. He is the second outside cornerback opposite of Joey Porter Jr., and his speed has made a positive impact on Pittsburgh's defense. That player swap alone has been a gigantic win for the black and gold thus far. When it comes to the pick swap, that could go either way, and we will see how those eventual draft picks play out. This has been an overwhelming win for the Steelers thus far, as Johnson and the Panthers get prepared for a terrible season ahead. That is bad news for Johnson as he remains on an expiring contract, and a big payday in free agency looks unlikely. Perhaps the Panthers will trade Johnson for a second time within the year if they continue to struggle and want to get some value back. Any value in a trade would need Johnson to start to produce bigger numbers. He has only caught 5 passes off of 12 targets through 2 games for 34 yards. Those numbers are terrible, but Johnson and the Panthers will hope a new quarterback will turn things around. ESPN's Mel Kiper says this should be banned from the NFL. If you ask just about anyone who has experience watching, coaching, or playing football, they'll tell you offense is easier than it's ever been. Quarterbacks and runners are extremely protected, while the restrictions on pass interference have never been tighter. However, if you ask Mel Kiper, offenses need their hands held even more in order to foster explosive play. In recent weeks, with early season passing numbers at an unprecedented low, the usage of 2 high defensive schemes, ones that devote 2 safeties to deep coverage, has been a focal point of discussion. Many believe that excessive usage of this tactic is responsible for the decrease in air-based offense. Whether or not that's true, 2 high defense has existed more or less since the proliferation of the forward pass. It's just becoming a bit more popular now. Offense and defense in the NFL both go through changes throughout time, with different approaches becoming more popular than others in different eras. It's a constant push and pull, as one changes, the other adapts, and through this endless cycle, the game evolves. To many longtime fans, uniquely strategic element of the sport is what makes following the NFL for decades upon decades so interesting. Not according to Mel Kiper. He thinks the usage of this type of defense should be completely banned, calling the 1960s, 70s and 80s the best of the National Football League, and suggesting that we should change the rules to bring play styles closer to what they were back then. Kiper evokes memories of frequent deep shots being taken by passers, implying that this is a preferable offensive environment. That's certainly an interesting take, as 1965 saw just one qualifying passer average over 200 yards per game, as did 1970, while the number was up to 4 by 1975 thanks to legends like Ken Anderson, Fran Tarkenton and Roger Staubach. Even in 1980, just 2 passers cracked the 4,000-yard plateau, a standard for passers in today's league, even before the expansion to 17 games per season. In 1985, just Dan Marino threw for at least 4,000 yards, and in 1990, only Warren Moon did it. Even beyond the debate of whether such a ban should exist, establishment and enforcement of such a rule would likely look bizarre at best, and totally ineffective at worst. Since defenders must be free to occupy any portion of the field after the snap, or else offenses would just send all of their pass catchers into the restricted zones, a rule banning too high would necessarily have to restrict where players can line up. This would result in a second safety lining up near the linebackers or cornerbacks and immediately dropping back to the deep third of the field, effectively no different than what we have today, except perhaps that this rule might help defenses disguise their intentions ahead of the snap. The NFL shouldn't be making rules just to foster more offense, and they certainly shouldn't be doing so just to promote a certain style of offense. There are plenty of opportunities for capable passers to find success in the short and intermediate games, as devoting an extra defender to deep coverage sacrifices manpower in other portions of the field. Smart offenses are adapting to the new defensive landscape, as even MVP quarterback Patrick Mahomes of the two-time defending champion Kansas City Chiefs is seeing his average depth of target fall just about every season. This approach of taking what is being given in the underneath spaces isn't particularly hard to replicate for teams with reasonably accurate passers at the helm. If other teams aren't ready to adapt, there's no reason the league should change itself to stop them from being left behind. The NFL is special and engaging because it's an ever-changing league, and making rule changes to prevent such evolution would be a disservice to not just players and coaches who have worked hard to optimize themselves for success in a modern league, but to all creative and curious football minds. Chargers LB Joey Bosa expects to be at full strength against Steelers in long and intense game. The Pittsburgh Steelers are 2-0, but they'll be tested this week against the Los Angeles Chargers, who are also undefeated. The Chargers have been similar to the Steelers in that they play physical, tough football. They have a lethal stable of pass rushers led by Joey Bosa. Bosa is one of the NFL's best edge rushers when healthy, but lately, that's been a struggle for him. However, it sounds like he'll be at full strength this week. No, definitely not, Bosa said Wednesday via the team's YouTube channel when asked if he felt like he was going to be limited against the Steelers. Knock on metal, everything goes well this week in practice. I plan to have a very long and intense game. Bosa has had a tough time staying healthy throughout his career, only playing in 2 full seasons throughout his 9-year career. He only missed 1 game in 2021, which was the healthiest he's been recently. He's a force on the field, but health has been his biggest question mark. This year, he's still dealing with health issues. On the injury report released on Wednesday, Bosa was a limited participant with a hip injury. He's played in both games this year, and it sounds like this current injury isn't serious enough to make him concerned about his level of play for this week. In 95 career games, Bosa has 69 sacks, showing just how much of a disruptor he can be. However, he might be even more lethal this year because Khalil Mack is his partner rushing the passer. Mack has been with the Chargers since 2022, but Bosa has only played in 14 games over those 2 years, not giving them many opportunities to play together. Mack had 17 sacks last year and is a former Defensive Player of the Year. He might be 33 years old, but he's still a threat. If they're healthy, Bosa and Mack might be the best pass-rushing duo in the NFL. The Steelers' offensive line has had a tough time keeping a clean pocket this year, so they could seriously struggle against the Chargers' defense. We'll see if Bosa's practice status improves as the week goes on. He doesn't sound worried, though, even though he knows this game is probably going to be extremely taxing. These two teams are built similarly and play similar brands of football, so it should be a true battle of wills. Health might be the deciding factor. And you, fan? What do you think of the situation of Joey Bosa? Leave your opinion in the comments.